Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final power rankings of the season, Week 8 power rankings for VDL Season 8. With me here is Miss Mag. Say hi, Miss Mag.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And so, with this, we're going to not only talk about the Week 8 matches and the final power rankings, we're also going to do a little bit of the playoff breakdown at the end of it. So, let's get straight into the season. So, starting off, we had the live premiere, which is a really playoff focused match, which was the Migrating Melodics versus the Trixie Tricos, in which the Melodics were able to win 2-0. In addition to winning, they also were able to lock up the regular season championship with this win. So, what is your thoughts on the match?
First off, just want to say congratulations to Brave. He had a great breakout season in the VDL for his first time. Not only going undefeated in sets, and I think he only dropped like 2 games,
It was
but
one.
also just he only dropped 1 game. Excuse me. But yeah, his team just works so well, and I think this match was interesting in the fact that this was one of the times that didn't rely on he has this like little core four of like Spectre and Azu and Garchomp and Volcarona, and this was one match where like the some of the lesser mons like Musharna did so much work in this match, and Electivire also did a good amount of work. Unfortunately, got a very unlucky crit for the Trixie Tricos against a bulk up Thunderous that was literally slated to live that hit at with the boost, but that's just kind of Pokemon for you. But I think Brave still positioned himself well around everything that Trixie Tricos was trying to throw at him.
Oh yeah, like I liked Braves prep. So for people who didn't watch the match or who don't remember, the main strategy, I don't know if this was planned preemptively or just kind of a byproduct of the game, but was giving Misharna a coaching boost to increase its defense, and then Misharna was able to completely disrupt the entirety of the game plans of the Trixie Tricos by spamming Yawn, and the Yawn support was massively disruptive for the Tricos because not only were they threatened to go to sleep and had to switch out, or they actually made Pokemon go to sleep. The Tricos ended up bringing, I think, at least three Mons that were setup Mons with um, Swords Dance, Blaziken, Bulk Up, um, Thunderous, and Cosmic Power Clefable. And so their entire game plan was kind of mitigated by that Yawn support. As you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
the uh, the Thunderous got one shot by a Electivire, even though it had +1 defense because it was got a little bit unlucky with the crit. I know game one, the Absol, or assuming the Trico's Absol was Super Luck Scope Lens, which I believe it was, it missed a 50-50 roll to get the one shot on Musharna, and not getting that ended up costing them a massive amount of situations. But it was definitely an interesting match where I think the melodics showed a set that was really bulky, and not as conventional as some of the previous sets they've been doing. And I think it was a very good win for them.
Yeah, like the set was kind of hacksy. Like we can be honest about that, but I feel like more of that was in the second game with like the Shadow Ball, special defense drops, and then the crit. I think the crit wild charge is really just kind of like the nail in the coffin at that point because Otto was kind of like like the yawn pressure was great from Brave. The coaching strategy was excellent. I felt like Otto was trying to get his footing back, but that Electivire crit just kind of like chances just went in the
Well,
garbage.
yeah.
But I think Brave played game one really well with some good reads.
Oh, yeah. I know. Another thing is I think Brave ended up getting like four special defense drops on, I want to say, Psychic and Shadow Balls combined, but and so that definitely didn't help out. And then another thing that I know was I think Brave just did well with switches and protects because a lot of turns that ended up going in favor of the melodics were just from uh, the Tricos attacking into a protect or attacking to a Mon that was then switched out.
Yep, but it was a good set. I think very much worth being the live premiere for the week 8 of the regular season.
Yeah. So with that, the next match is a kind of not really a match, but we'll mention it. It is the Crushing Sylvalis versus the Alola Arachnids. The Somalis ended up having to forfeit because they had some family emergencies, so they weren't able to participate, and the Iraqis were able to get the 2-0. And with the 2-0, they were actually able to lock up playoff spot. So first, I will say I'm sorry to hear that coach of the Somalis. I'm sorry you couldn't play. I hope everything's going well. And it's sad to see the end of your season kind of go because you couldn't play your last match, because you definitely had a really good chance of making playoffs. So I'm sorry for you some. However, also, congratulations, Racknitz, for making playoffs. So any comments or do you want to say about the forfeit win?
Yeah, no, just pretty much the same. Like, I'm happy for KJ and the Iraqis for making playoffs, but I'm also equally, wishing Sam and whatever his real life situation is well. And I'm sad that he couldn't like kind of come back with like a real big robot. He had a really tough schedule after midseason, and like that's when those problems started. So it would have been cool to see his team, which started off so hot, kind of see how they would have finished without that sort of in the mix there.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I also would have loved to just see these two friends of mine face off because I just think it would have been a good match. But yeah, but some will come back strong next season. I'm pretty confident in that, and we're gonna see what KJ, another newcomer to VDL, making playoffs for the first time, will have in store for us.
Yeah. But with that, we can go to the next match, which was Mad Rex versus the Bolden Bashers, in which the Bashers were able to win 2-0. So I'm going to start off with this one because I want to mention the spicy tech that Goomer brought us, which was a final gamut shuckle with contrary next to a receiver Pessimian. So when Shuckle killed itself using Final Gambit, it passed contrary to Pessimian, and then Pessimian, with close combats, was able to increase both its special defense and physical defense, and it also had Drain Punch to heal itself and leftovers to heal itself. And so it was definitely a cool set. I don't know if it was necessarily the best set, but it was a cool set. But I'll let you talk about the set. I just wanted to mention the cool tech.
No, I mean, I was also going to mention the cool tech if you didn't start out with it, because when I first watched this battle from Goomer's perspective, I was like, at first I didn't get it. Well, I was like, why is there final gambit on this? That like Shuckle's base HP is like 25. I'm pretty sure it's like stupidly low to offset the fact that it's got stupidly high base defense stat. And then I thought about Pacific, and I was like, oh, right, it gets like receiver, an ability that I don't think he's used at all during the season because obviously Defiant is just on the whole so much better. And I'm like, this guy's gonna make himself an iron wall with close combat. So I'm like, that's really freaking cool. Like, I want to ascend to the level of playing that Goomer is at some point in the future, because like I probably would have never even thought to bring that like to an actual match. But I really love seeing Goomer work the shuckle this season, and I think this one kind of closed it out. On the flip side, I think this might have been Rex's worst match in terms of hacks, in terms of missing moves. I guess I'm pretty sure he missed like 4 hypnosis with that Palos, and then like I just remember seeing the match. I was like, oh, he's trying to disrupt Goomer, and then he's just failing considerably because he keeps missing. Excuse me, because he keeps missing the moves.
Well,
So
yeah, I know. I think there was a point in game 2 where Rex ended up going for a sheer cold, where if they went for a freeze dry, I think they might have been able to get the win. In addition, like game 2 ended up coming down to a really close. I think it ended up coming down to a Inteleon. No. It was a Thwacky versus Pessimian end game with inside terrain, and the Thwacky I think ended up getting the Pessimian down to like 6 HP or something around there, and so just barely missed out on the KO.
crazy. Yeah, but it was. I would say it was a good way for the Bashers to kind of lock up that their attempt at getting that first seed. This game was played actually pretty early relative to the other matches we were talking about. Just for a little background. But yeah, good set, good way for Shuckle Meme King Goomer to close out his regular season.
Yeah. And talking about first seed in art in that division, the coach that was competing against them was myself, and I needed to win. However, I lost in the next match below, which was the Bistro Bewares versus the Thing Like Rubambi, where I lost 2-1. Or I lost 1-2, whatever. The Bewares won. I'll let you talk about the match if you want to, or I can if we're not to.
Yeah, I can start. So this was, I would say on paper this was definitely not an easy match for a Mono Ice team. Troy and the coach of the Bewares did insulate himself, picking up a Vulpix and a Lycan Rock Midnight, I believe
Yes.
the no guard one, the no guard Stone Edge machine. Yeah, he picked that up right before trades ended in week 8. He ended up giving away his Leafeon and his Coughing, and at first I was a little confused because I thought, one of the things that can challenge Batista is Mono Ice Team is a weather mode, but he gave away his abuser. But as far as the match went, the Vulpix just kind of came to support that Entei, and that Entei just kind of went off. But the real clincher was an unfortunate Scarf, Lycanroc, Rockslide Flinch on a Mr. Rhyme, who we have known and loved to see from your team, trying to set up Trick Room, just doing its job. And that kind of sealed up the game, too. I believe you won the game one fairly handily.
So game one, they did not expect Scarf Arctivish with Slush Rush, and
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that it outsped and unburdened Hitmonlee caught them off guard, and Arctivish basically just swept their team. And so yeah, it definitely went very well once I was able to kill the NDD. Game two, um, pretty much a similar situation occurred, but I couldn't get 2 kills before I had to switch in my Ninetales, and so they were able to switch in Vulpix, counteract the hell, and beat me because of that. And then game three, as you mentioned, I had my Trick Room package in the back, and they and I if I would have set up Trick Room, I would have been very good position because their entire team was faster than my Trick Room mode, and I threatened to one shot most of their non Trick Room or most of their Pokemon. With my Glastrier in the back, however, the flinch ended up, clinching the game pretty much.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate to see, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, that is the game that we play. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a close set. I think from both perspectives.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that was very awkward about this set is the if me losing put it as a 50% chance that we would play each other in one of around one of the playoffs, which is definitely something that was also really awkward.
Well, I won't spoil that for the viewers. They get to learn about that later. But yes, just know that Batista lost, and that put him at a 50% chance to replay this matchup.
Uh,
Keep that in your heads.
but with that, we can go to the next match, which was Rebellion versus the Drowsy Dracozolt, which was honestly an amazing match. It was incredibly interesting. Would you like to start?
Sure. I'll just start off by saying this. So, Lucian, coach of the Rebellions, and Masengo, coach of the Drowsy Drake Results, those guys know how to put on a show. Like, in spite of the records or whatever stakes, this was probably, honestly, by far one of my favorite matches of the entire week, other than probably my own, because, like, I'm just biased. Just gonna be honest. But the Wall Rain set that Masenko brought this week is it was just amazing. It is just so unfortunate. I believe it came down to he had like rest, sleep, talk with weakness policy, and I think the difference between him losing and winning the set literally came down to like a hydro pump miss or a missed target or something like that. I don't actually fully remember, but
So
maybe you
so
can remind me.
so game three came down to a sleeping Walrein clicking sleep talk. It needed to hit specifically Magneton on the field, so one of two targets, and it needed to click either of its two offensive moves. So basically, it came down to the 50-50 targeting of having to target specifically Magneton, and then the 2/3 chance of clicking a targeted move. It ended up the sleep talk ended up clicking Hydro Pump, targeting Magneton, but then missing the Hydro Pump. So so it was
That's just so rough.
so
Like you're right there.
and so Masiko specifically mentioned to me at some point, where like I would have rather it just called Sleep Talk just did rest instead.
Yeah, that's just kind of the game, just kind of taunting you at that point,
but
saying, "Hey, there's the right move you did, but you missed."
but I think yeah, Rebellion played really well. So basically, game one, came down to a end game, which was a very bulky Blastoise with Aqua Wing leftovers, um, Scald Ice Beam, and into the Rest Sleep Talk Wall Rain. And the game ended up coming down to timer where Raw Rain and the Dracozolt were able to win. Game
Mm-hmm.
two, Dracozolt ended up, leading or switching up to their Mons, and they brought some less bulky Mons and Veriscue to Flygon, and those died pretty quickly. And they ended up not bringing the Wolverine at all, and they kind of just didn't have enough bulk. And so game three, it came down to them bringing the Wolverine again, trying to be bulky, and what ended up happening was the only Mon that could threaten Walrein on the Rebellion's team was Magneton, and Rebellion did really good job at saving the Magneton in the back, switching it out, making sure it didn't die, because if it died at any point, the Dracozolts guaranteed win the game.
Right. Yeah. No, these guys played really well. It was a good finish to the regular season for both of these guys.
Yeah, oh definitely. Um, and then I know Rebellion did have a cool tech. Well, I don't know if cool tech, but it ended up working out really funnily where they did Hypnosis Dream Eater Gengar into the team that had Sleep Talk. And another thing, they also had Sleep Powder on their Tingla. And so at some point, they Sleep Powdered Walrein, and then the next turn, Walrein just Sleep Talked, and Lucian was like, "What the heck is going on?" It was definitely
Listen,
funny.
yeah, no, it's funny because like I bet he brought that planning just to like get some nice chip and some fodder, but he never probably thought Maseko would actually choose that week to run Sleep Talk. And Lucian's known for being lucky, but this was definitely one of those weeks.
Yeah,
In addition to obviously playing well, but yeah, being like literally like I don't know what 15% chance that you win the game on the spot, it's kind of crazy.
yeah. But with that, I guess we can move on to your match, where you had a really important match where you needed to win to get into playoffs, and a lose was guaranteed knocking you out of playoffs, and you were able to win the match 2-1. So what were your thoughts on your set?
Can I just say before I even start, thank you to all the people that made it happen that I didn't actually need the 2-0 this coach because it was such a crazy set. Like there was no I was definitely dropping a game somewhere. Like just trying to figure out what was going on in that first game really good. So basically, this is what happened. They brought Crobat. They have their Tailwind. They have their Trick Room Setter and the Runerigus. They bring Tapu Lele, Cinderace, and then Dragalge and Rhyperior, which is kind of their Trick Room modes. But I also learned that Rhyperior can work well under Tailwind. I'm aware of that. So basically, game one they led Rhyperior and Dragalge, and I just lead Tornadus and Marowak, and I'm running fast Marowak this week, so I'm like Tailwind ground move, but like I just didn't understand what that lead was even going to accomplish. So like I was a little skeptical. So I just went with the safe play, kind of preserve. But basically, Marowak swept his whole team. Like the first game, like it 4-0'd everything. Not really much effort once I got the speed control. The second game, he leaned into the trick room, and with a little bit of the pivoting and whatnot, and like the chip, and he made some good reads. I made some not super great reads or switches, quite honestly. He was able to basically get me to an end game where Azalf behind a substitute had to beat Cinderace, 2 HP health Rhyperior, and a full health Tapu Lele. Azalf is good, but it's not that good, so I lost that one. And then the game three was probably the most exciting of them all because I brought the Jellicent in the mix this time, knowing that like I just needed him to choose a speed control mode, and him not bringing either of them to game one made me realize like what is he even doing? Like it's like at least if I knew he brought one, I could maybe adjust to the other. But when he went Trick Room in game two, I felt comfortable he would run it back. So I brought the Jellicent in, a little bit of Imprison, trying to stop Trick Room. I time out. I get Scald instead into Pasho Berry Rhyperior. Thankfully, I put my moves in size order because if it had actually clicked anything else, it probably would have gone poorly because the Runerigus decided to not set Trick Room. It decided to attack instead. Yeah, it was just a crazy set. Like Marrow, I kind of just cleaned up for me, but I gotta give props to Joe. Like that slow Cinderace really kind of put me off there.
Well, yeah, I think one of the interesting situations that occurred was a -1 Cinderace was outsped by a Marowak, and that ended up being one of the major deciding points in the game, um, which definitely ended up hurting the Talonflames. I think being one of the big deciding factors.
Yeah. And then also the other thing was like not realizing that the Lele was actually not scarfed because I got crit on my Psychic Seed boosted Incineroar, which did not. If I didn't get crit and I died anyway, I would have known it was Specs because of how I calced for it. But it's just like little bits of information, pieces of the puzzle missing for me, kind of
Well,
going into game two
and the fact that Tapu Lele outsped Cinderace, which doesn't seem like it should occur, because their
without
Cinderace,
Scarf.
yeah, without Scarf, because their Cinderace, oh yeah, because it was like a very interesting game because the Cinderace has the ability to outspeed Azelf, which is one of your fastest mons, and however you need almost max speed, and so they decided to go basically zero speed in Cinderace, and but they ended up going a lot of speed in Tapu Lele, so it ended up outspeeding.
Yeah, I think he was like 31, no investment on the Cinderace, and I didn't even think about the Azelf interaction like in the moment because I was just so happy. I was expecting Sucker Punch anyway, so the sub in game two was just like, okay, he's either gonna Sucker Punch, and then it's like I literally clicked Protect already. Like you're not gonna high jump kick into something that has a viable turn to protect. I'm like, nah, he's gonna Sucker Punch. He goes for the high jump kick anyway. Which, when I watched it from his perspective, was actually funny because he forgot that I had Protect. So there's a good chance that a mid ground play of Protected Substitute, which I thought was too passive, would have actually won me the game on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it was a good way to end the season. I really enjoyed that match.
Well,
GG's to Joe.
definitely a fun match. But with that, we can move on to the next one, which is the Steel Warriors versus the Queen City Quagsires. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe this match was recorded.
It wasn't. Just we just have like a battle report.
Do you want to go over the battle port or just kind of move on?
I'll just I'll bring it up real quick. It was a 2-1 in favor of the Queen City Quagsire, so congratulations to them for picking up another win to end their season. I know they've had a lot of like 1-2s and 2-1s over the season, so excuse me, big ups to Apple for that. Just going over the battle report, it seems like Herdier did a good chunk of work in the first game, picking up chip on things with Snarl, and Hydreigon was kind of cleaning up. And that's pretty much the story of this set. It seems like game two, Toby was able to get overpower the rain mode with his own sun mode, because Venusaur took like 3 kills that game. And then
4 kills,
Apple,
actually.
it took all four.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, the residual sludge, but yeah, Vino basically 4-0'd for Toby. And then game three, it was basically Toby trying to run back to Sun mode, but then the Zapdos comes in. I don't know if it was goggles or not, but like presumably if it was like goggles Zapdos, like Venusaur's not touching that one. So yeah, good set from just reading the battle report. It seems like close games. Actually, the games two and game three were both 1-0s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But with that, we can move on to the next match, which was the Tentacle Pirates versus the Ferocious Ursaring. This match ended up being a forfeit in favor of the Pirates. The Ursaring were out of town, I believe, and they couldn't match. However, the match ended up not being that relevant because at the time, the Vaporeons already clinched up first seed, and the Pirates were guaranteed second seed no matter if they lost or won. So the match ended up not being, it was like not that big of a deal based on playoffs. Apparently they played each other in an exhibition. If you watch that, you can talk about that one. Miss Beck, you there? Well, I don't hear them, so I'm going to continue on. Um, so yell at me if anything's different. Um, Actually, one second. Yeah. So continuing. Oh, are you back?
Oh, yeah, no. Was I gone?
I couldn't hear you.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, no. It was. I didn't really get to see the exhibition match, but the score ended up being the same 2-0 in favor of the Pirates anyway. So, yeah, they just wanted to play just to round out the season.
Uh, so with that though, we can move on to the next match, which was the rolled gold pretzels versus the grandma's Tokakisses, where the Tokakisses were able to win 2-1. Um, I personally don't recall watching this. Was this recorded?
Don't think so. This one, I don't think we have like anything on other than the 2-1.
Well, yeah, we could, we can look at the stats and basically I can say that what looked like happened is that game one, um, Gumi won with Lycan Rock Dusk doing a lot of work. Game two and three were won by Grandma Soga Kisses, where it looks like they were able to get some speed control with Tailwind Whimsicott and get some massive damage with their other mons like Metagross and Lycan Rock midday.
Hmm, sounds about right.
But didn't watch it, so I didn't get too much any information. But both of these teams, I think, yeah, like the, you know, it was it looked like a close match though. So
Yeah.
any thoughts before we move on to the next one, which was actually a
Um.
match that we saw?
Nah. No, no, and then just kind of rounding it out, like this match also wasn't for any playoff implications. Both of these coaches were eliminated in prior weeks up until this point.
Yeah. But next up, we have the Vienna Vaporeons versus the Baltimore Pangorials, which this was a really big match for the Vaporeons, who were trying to get first seed. And in addition, it was a big match for the Pangorials, who were trying to get the regular season champion. And so, with the Vaporeons winning, they were able to lock up first seed in their division, and the Pangorials were not able to get for regular season champion. So, what were your thoughts on the set?
This was actually a really good showing from the Vaporeons. They made 4 trades literally right before it. Similar to a few teams did this. We didn't mention this about the Tricos, but they also did 4 trades right before facing Brave and the Milotics. Like, Lion was one of those coaches that took advantage of the trade window ending, and one of those trades in particular, the Alolan Persian, I feel like was a big factor in this match. I feel that sometimes we are so conditioned to certain mons running certain sets that I believe Panda actually forgot some of the moves that the Persian was running, which I believe affected some of his targeting and gameplay decision choices during this set. I think he mentioned that afterwards.
They were playing around fake out Persian for the entire set, even though all four moves were revealed, including and none of those were fake out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other than that, I do remember that a life orb Duraludon coming in for the Vaporeons did a fair amount of work for them like offensively, which kind of makes sense into Primarina plus Sandcore as well. I think the Pangorials were able to take. I think they won the second game of the set, but I
Yes, they
could be
were.
wrong. They did, yeah. Okay, so yeah, Panda definitely adjusted well after that, but I think game 3 just really came down to like just some misplays and some crucial reads that might have just not gone his way.
Well, yeah, yeah. So I think some some of the like the match ended up being pretty awkward for the Pangorials. I believe they kind of were in a lot of positions where I feel like they were just barely missed out on like being in the right position, or just barely missed out on making the right decision. Um, I know at some point they they were in like this really awkward position game three where they had their sand up. However, their scarfed Glalie had exactly enough HP that it was going to die from sand the following turn, and the Mons were basically almost guaranteed to double protect in front of them. So they were forced to switch out. Where if they had one more HP, they would have survived the sand and they could have stayed in and then got the double knockout because they would have outspeed both of them. Instead, they had to switch out, which ended up being really awkward. Um, and like a couple of like situations like that where I think they were like you know they weren't able to get the speed control that they needed. They were the Primina kind of just couldn't quite get the kills, things like that. It's definitely the kind of that type of match.
Yeah, nah, it's tough to be in those matches where like you feel like you're constantly falling short, and obviously being a 2-1 victory for the Vaporeons kind of indicates like in some ways that kind of match, but it was still a very good showing from the Vaporeons. They really were hungry for that first seed, and they knew what they had to do, even going into facing the current reigning champion in their last week. So they locked it up.
Yeah. But with that, we can move on to the next match, which was the MK Mimikyus versus the New York Metronomes. This was a very big match because this was a win and in for both of these teams. So the winner was guaranteed to make playoffs. The loser was guaranteed not to make playoffs by the time this match actually occurred. And so it ended up being a really impactful match for playoff wise. However, the Mimikyus were able to win 2-0. I guess I'll kind of start. For the most part, what
Mm-hmm.
what ended up happening was um, the Mimikyus ended up bringing whatever the baby hippo and Sandrush Stoutland, and I definitely did not seem like the Metronomes were expecting that at all, and it caught them off guard. Did a massive amount of work, and then the hippo by itself also just did a lot of work with yawn support, and I believe it had Sand Tomb if I recall. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that combination just did ended up doing a lot of work. So, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Like it was. I think this was probably the most impactful match of the week because this was the only match of the week as far as playoffs are concerned where literally there was something on the line for both teams. For sure. I mean, just based on how the results have been picked out, like someone was going home a loser from this match and not entering playoffs. So it was definitely a good showing from the Mimikyus, who had a little bit of, I would say, like a little bit of a rough sort of time after midseason, picking up a few losses there. But that Stoutland did some work, man. Like that Stoutland was very impressive, um, for sure. Did like it basically, if I recall correctly, it basically cleaned up Preston's whole team game two almost by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, it was a good showing. Congrats obviously to the Mimikyus for clutching it out and getting that playoff spot, and GG's to the Metronomes. Also, congratulations for them for like literally clawing their way back, starting 1-3, and like really brought themselves into this position anyway to get a playoff spot. Can't let that go unnoticed.
Oh yeah. They definitely had a really good push there at the end, and they're one match away from making playoffs. Sadly they had the tough matchup who they couldn't break through, but but also I think the Urshifu ended up getting the regular season kills champion. It got the most kills in the regular season.
There you go.
But with that, we can move on to the final match, which was Lake Erie Wishy-Washies versus the Manchester Park Slowpokes, where the Wishy-Washies were able to win 2-0. So what were your thoughts on the set?
So when I was watching this set, I was like, wait, some of this stuff looks familiar. So I'm not entirely sure if Adam brought a team he used previously. I mean, he's used some of like we've seen like the swagger stuff like the whole season, especially into the Lumbaria subtile and all of that jazz. But I just remember it seemed like there was a lot of familiarity, but in spite of whatever antics the Slowpokes were trying, didn't seem like Hippo and the Wishy Washies were having it. They just played a pretty straightforward game plan from what I can recall.
Yeah, so basically, game one, the Wishy-Washies led Scarf, Mammoth next to Follow Me Togekiss, and literally just swept the entire team with Mammoth. Um, and
Mm,
and then game two ended up they ended up doing the exact same lead, and was very close, but did not get the complete sweep with Mammoth.
yes, I do. I do remember this was the Mammoth Swine getting like 7 kills in one game.
Yes, he got
Yeah.
7 kills.
Wow. Good
Um,
job, man.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
Mammoth Swine.
as per I believe every single match this season, Swagger Grimmsnarl came, in which it swaggered into the Sceptile. It tried to swagger into the Mamoswine, but they followed Mead away from it, and then it was pretty much just Mamoswine. Scarf Mamoswine caught the Slowpokes off guard and just crushed them.
Yep. Well, good games to both coaches. Yeah, I will say that. I mean, I'm a big Mamoswine fan, so Adam did post in the coach of Slowpokes did post that he was happy that he was able to help one of the mons he likes ascend in the kill leaderboard. So that's something.
That's fair. And with that, we can get to our official rankings for week 8 and of the regular season and our last power rankings of the season. And here we are. So, you know, unsurprisingly, the top 12 are the playoff teams. We didn't think any of the teams that didn't make playoffs were better than any of the teams that did. It's, at this point of the season, a lot of this is very record dependent. If you kind of look at it, most of these are just, dependent on, each person's specific record. Any specific thoughts that you're interested in, or any specific rankings you thought were, coaches that you're, impressed with, or things you want to mention?
Yeah, like kind of like you said, like the top 12 are definitely basically based on record for sure. In fact, actually, it's literally this will be slight spoilers, but yeah, it's basically the first 12 are almost in pretty much seed order, which will give you a good guarantee of what the matchups will look like. But in terms of like coaches to shout out, I just want to say just to everybody in general, like thank you guys for sticking it through for this season. I know people had, life situations, this and that, but I still think it was a great season. Probably actually one of my favorite seasons in the VDL so far. I think we had a great crew this time around, and everybody did something cool, something techie, something fun,
Well,
and I think that
so
made it good.
so we mentioned this in the Discord, but I think it's worth mentioning again. This is the first season in the history of the VDL in which every single team ended up getting a win. So we had zero loss or zero win teams, which was definitely, kind of shows your statement, which is every team kind of did something cool.
Yeah, that's always great. Everybody gets to go home with a win, and it also shows how like it was a tight season. Like some of the differences between places on this ranking is literally games, not even whole sets, just actual games. Some of them even turns of games.
Well, yeah,
So,
and then on top of this, like almost every single team on this list was able was was in the playoff hunt as recently as week 6. You know, week six
hmm
week 6 they were still in the playoff hunt. So it's definitely a close season. And obviously here's the end up rankings. But I guess with that
yep.
we can move on to the playoffs. So this is the first round of the playoffs, which is the wild card round. So before we kind of discuss the round itself, here are our seeds and the teams. First, we have the first seeds, which were the Melodics, the Pangorials, the Vaporeons, and the Bashers. All these teams do not have to play this round of playoffs. They get to skip this round, and they will play the winner of the second seeds and the wild cards in the second round of playoffs. The second seeds were Rebellion, the Tentacle Pirates, the Wishy-Washis, and Sting Like Rabombi. And then the wild cards were the Mimikyus, the Arachnids, the Marauders, and the Bewares. Um, so anything about any of these seeds or any of the coaches in general that you wanted to mention?
No. Well, I guess I'll just kind of obligatorily have to shout out my division, Diamond Gang. We got 4 of our guys up here out of 12, so big ups to Diamond.
Yeah, definitely.
Which was by far the toughest division anyway.
Uh, well, definitely, there's definitely an argument for that. But yeah, I definitely think some of these teams just clinched playoffs really early and have been dominating the entire season, namely like the Melodics and the Pangorials. And some of these teams had a really tough late season push that definitely was really impressive. Some of those, you can say Rebellion, who ended up going 6 wins after an 0-2 start. You can say, coaches like, um, yourself, the Bewares, and the Arachnids, who at some point I think were like around like 18th, 20th ranked in the power rankings, and they made it all the way up to the wild card spot. So I definitely think I think a lot of these teams, some teams just dominating, some teams were back and forth, some teams had a really tough start, and then going off. And so definitely a lot of different type of coaches that made the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that adds to like again the diversity in the caliber of the coaches and just how close the season was entirely. Like, I mean, speaking for myself, I was what 1-3 by the time midseason happened. Like, I will openly admit that I was a little hesitant. I was a little discouraged about making playoffs at that juncture, given that our division was pretty tough and I still had to face two coaches within it at the very least, one of which I needed to beat to get to even playoff contention.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But with that, here is our rounds. So we can see the first round, first one in the top left is the Tentacle Pirates was paired with Miss Magical Marauders. Rebellion was paired with the Little Araquanids. Single Like Rabombi was paired with MK Mimikyus. And the Lake Erie Wishwashis were paired with the Bristol Bewares. So luckily for me, I didn't have my rematch of my week 8, but I believe I believe we ended up getting a pretty nice where I believe none of these are rematches at all, if I remember correctly. But with that, we can just go into the first match, which is my match, which is Stingray Rabombi versus MK Mimikyus. So any thoughts on this match?
Yeah, this is gonna be an interesting match, I think, from the Mimikyu's perspective. Like you have a mono ice team, yeah, that's kind of been your shtick the whole season, and they have a few nice answers for it. And of course they have our friendly ice table Avalug. I just think this will be really a matter of like who kind of blitzes who first in a lot of ways because I see just a lot of offensive juggernauts on both sides of the fence here. So positioning and pivoting will probably be a mainstay in whoever decides to come out on top here.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that their team has a lot of bulky mons, a lot of debuff, which I think could be really annoying for me. I they also have some speed with with a lot of their mons, so I definitely think it could be very interesting. I think one of the I definitely no, I'm not going to talk too much because it's my match, but I definitely think that a couple combinations of mons, like some of their synergistic pieces, can be really good. But we shall see.
Mm-hmm. Looks like a good match. I can't wait.
Uh, so with the next match, we have your match, the Miss Magical Marauders versus the Tentacle Pirates. I guess I'll talk about it, so I don't want you to get too much out of the way. This match looks like it's going to be entirely focused on pivoting and entirely focused on positioning. There's you know big fake out mons in both of your teams. There's big intimidates and speed and things like that that can be really annoying on both sides. With both of you having Tailwind, both of you having Trick Room, both of you having Intimidate, both of you having Fake Out, both of you having Screens. It's the team is definitely going to be in my opinion, going to be a grindy match with very focused on positioning and getting good reads.
Yeah, that sounds pretty much about what I would say my perspective on this match is. I would say that our comps are similar enough with a lot of those same tools that in some ways it really will just come down to how the game is played. Like it honestly feels like somewhat of a mirror match because for every tool that he might have, I can match it and almost vice versa. So, and in a lot of ways, I think that'll make for a more exciting match because it'll really come down to how skillful you can be with your decision making. So I'm very much looking forward to this. Well, not a rematch because I didn't face him this season, but I did face DJS, the coach of the Pirates, last season. I think that'll be a fun time.
Oh yeah, I definitely think this will be fun. If we were doing live premiere voting, I definitely would be picking this one. But with that, we can move on to the next match, which is Rebellion versus the Alolan Araquanids. So, what were your thoughts on this matchup?
My first thought was I actually feel sorry for Lucian in the initial looking at it because okay, so we all know Lucian's been running this mono Kanto team that you see on your screen, and we know that some of his most troubling weeks were against the usual Gen 1 Kryptonites, the OP psychic types, and the one type that wasn't even introduced in that generation. So I think keeping that in mind, it looks like a frightening matchup. But at the same time, I don't think it's easy for KJ and the Iraqwinds either because they, based on how they've been playing their team this season, like there's a lot of juggernauts on both of these teams. Like there's some straight up damage dealing, soul crushing mons on both sides, and I think this will also be another match when it comes down to like a little bit of positioning. Like both sides have redirection, both sides have sleep capability, both sides have fake out, both sides have intimidate. You know, it's that kind of metric. Both sides have a really bulky, somewhat bulky fairy type. Like it's gonna again kind of come down to how the match is played a little bit more than just what's brought.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely agree with that. I definitely I don't know who I would necessarily pick as an advantage. I definitely think that Rebellion has not been particularly trick room focused, and the Iraqis do have a pretty good trick room team. So I definitely think that could be given an advantage. But in the same sense, their trick room team doesn't necessarily threaten offensively a lot. Some of the more bulky mons on the Rebellion team, so it could be a little awkward in that aspect. So I'm definitely curious on how it ends up going.
I guess if Lucian wants to make it past this round, he has to conquer his barbecue chicken fears.
It's not fears at all, according to them.
Okay. Nah, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this one shakes out too. It's gonna be good.
And so with that, our final match is the Lake Erie Wishwashies versus the Bree Bewares. So any thoughts from your side on this set?
Sure. I think compared to the first three matchups, this is probably the one that I would say is the least like a mirror match, where there will be some more decisive playing coming down because the teams have very fundamentally different tools. I wouldn't necessarily say either of those tools is stronger or weaker than the others. I think the most entertaining thing from a viewer perspective is you got, you know, Suicune versus Entei, which on paper obviously Suicune would win, but Troy and the Bewares have proven that they are willing to very well support that Entei to sweep if need be, and Entei can do a good chunk of work into what the Wishy-Washis have. Likewise, Suicune could also do equivalent work into the Bewares. So I think it'll come down to, you know, what it'll be a little bit more matchup dependent. I think for this one, like one of the biggest things that these teams do share in common are having a premium redirector and a few setup mons, which are always good. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So one thing I will say is I think I slightly favor the Bewares in this matchup because I do think that their Trick Room mode looks really good into the Wishy Washi's teams. So that is something that I will say that I noticed because you know they like Tattering under Trick Room looks really good into almost every mon on the Wishy Washi's team, except for like maybe two, and the Araquanid kind of fills those spots. So I definitely think that if they are able to get out Trick Room, they can probably get in a really good position and possibly win. However, the Wishy Washis are pretty scary with good multi-target moves to get around the redirection, and there's also have some pretty bulky mons in general. So
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be a fun match.
Yeah, I will raise you that yes, I agree with you. The Bewares have the scarier trigger mode. Those bottom two, Rakuen and Hattery, and if they get going, can be a problem. I think the problem will actually be just getting into that trick room because the wishy washies are very capable at splitting up their damage and having like really strong, stupidly strong spread moves and other ways to kind of counteract trick room. So it'll be a good match.
Yeah. But with that, that is the last match of the wild card round. We'll go over a full review of the matches next week, and hopefully, me and you will be talking about our wins rather than our losses.
Hope so.
So, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, just to all the coaches in this wild card round, good luck, have fun. Looking forward to some great matches. To the first seeds, enjoy the popcorn eating from up on the week off barrier, which we are going to be brawling for your amusement. And just in general, like I'm looking forward to seeing how this shakes out. And like you said, I hope to be coming back here next week talking about a win. But I mean, between the Pirates and the Marauders, we're going to see who's the real thug of the sea this week.
Yep. And so with that, we'll sign off. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.